Okay, so I'm pleased to say that in celebration of Girls and Women in STEM Day, which is on the 11th of February, I'm joined today by Professor Alison McMillan, who is a professor in Aerospace Technology here at the university. She is educated to PhD level along the boundaries between the disciplines of applied mathematics, physics and mechanical engineering. She's spent roughly half of her career in industry, managing research and development projects, carrying out specialist engineering roles, and managing intellectual property development, so helping her colleagues to recognise which of their ideas could be patented. So then she switched back into academia about 8 years ago, where she has been working on developing an understanding around material strength and life and how that is affected by flaws in materials, which I'm sure as we work through the interview, the little catch up that we're having, that will become more understood as you kind of explain through that. So hopefully I've given you a nice introduction, a short potted history. Is there anything else there that you wanted to add, or are you happy
well,
to
thank you
move
very
on?
much indeed. That's very kind. Nice introduction, and perhaps, yes, as you say, these things will come out more in the interview. So please
Brilliant.
begin.
Fantastic. As this interview is about women in STEM, it probably is kind of paramount to start with talking about being a woman with a career in STEM from your perspective. So how has this identity and any social perceptions of being a woman impacted you?
I think probably the biggest problem with gender identity is the expectations that come from, if you're one thing or the other, this is the sort of life you're going to have, and this is the way you're going to lead it, and these are the things that are going to be interesting to you, and so on. And I think having that pressure of expectation put on you, especially from a young age, it doesn't always, well, it leads people to doubt what they are, and I think that's the biggest danger, the biggest. I mean, I, as a small child, I had no doubts at all. I was a boy. I mean, that was exactly what I was, because that's what I was interested in: cars, playing around, getting dirty, and all the sorts of things that boys do. And of course, it wasn't really until I went to school and had a fight over a car and whether or not I should be the one playing with it, that I was rudely informed that I was a girl and I shouldn't be playing with it. And I think that's the tragedy. I think we should all accept what we are, because that's what we're given, but it shouldn't define who we are. I think we're defined by ourselves. This is our own interest and what we want to do with our lives. And I think that really is very much down to not being told, not being dictated to what the limits are on what you do with your life. And I think that's the important thing that we should carry from this. Not so much putting people in lots of little, you're a girl, you're a boy, you're cis, and you're trans, or I think that's really a shame that people feel a need to be categorized in such a way. I think we're all people, and that's the only category we need.
And I think that would be a lovely space for us all to be in, wouldn't it? Where our identity is irrelevant to some extent, in the sense that we can just do whatever, and the boundaries aren't there, and they're limitless, and we're all equal. I suppose we're all operating in a society where there's perceptions and limits put on us for one reason or another. And as a society, we're desperately working to kind of break those boundaries down, aren't we? And challenge those perspectives, which is part and parcel of why we're kind of having this chat today as well.
Yes, exactly.
To show people that you can do that, and you can just forge your own path, and be strong-willed and ignore to some extent all of those kind of societal.
I think absolutely we shouldn't feel that girls have to be girly. It's not about lipstick and makeup and wearing clothes. It's about doing whatever you want. So if you want to be playing in engineering, if you want to be learning maths, if you want to, there are careers out there. And I think those of us who have come through and studied and got to the near the tops of our careers, at that point, that all of those issues disappear. It's the perceptions at the lower end. It's the growing up and when you don't believe that there is a future of that sort for you, then that's when you become trapped in this artificial role model that is ascribed to women. And I think that, you know, the biggest release of it is to study, get into a career. And okay, we're talking about STEM careers today, but I don't think it's limited to that. If you want to become a lawyer, if you want to become a doctor, if you want to, you know, there are loads of different other careers beyond just the STEM ones. Get to the top of your career and just do it because you're a woman. That would be my advice.
Fantastic message. So my next question is about your specific area of STEM. So how would you explain it to others?
Yeah, it's always a tricky one because I think that you know, when you're at school, you see there's maths, there's physics, there's biology and chemistry, and you know that there might be engineering and there might be other topics that you don't do at school, but you can choose later on, like architecture or whatever. But real life is that science is moving around all of those disciplines and crossing the boundaries. So, okay, what I do is focused on practical application, but it's founded in physics and it's modeled in mathematics, and I use computers, computer science, to solve those problems. So although you might say, well, I'm a material scientist because I'm interested in how a material behaves, I'm also an engineer because I want to use that material for a product. I'm also a physicist because I want to understand how that material works, what's going on inside that material. And I'm a mathematician because I want to model what's going on inside that material. And I'm a computer scientist because I want to use computer methods and algorithms to solve that problem efficiently. So that's why I say I sit at the boundaries, and I really want to be pushing each of those boundaries. Gone are the days where you have a single discipline specialist. I think many discipline specialists have got ties into other disciplines that enable them to create the new novel capability that you wouldn't get if you were just a single discipline person, because you're not pulling in those skills that are required. So yeah, don't go narrow, except you go narrow but go broad at the same time. You can have a sort of T-shaped career, one that goes across and down, and maybe more like an M-shaped career, so you've got down and down in several different places. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Fantastic. So that kind of interdisciplinary approach, and the same kind of very similar answer to the first question. Don't be bound by the boundaries. You can be involved in lots of different things, and that makes what you do relevant and impactful because you can apply it. Great.
And it's this breadth of experience. Whatever you've experienced and whatever you've learned is all part of your toolkit for your personality, your person. And once you've got a toolkit of skills and experience, you know how to draw on it to make an individual, innovative output. So I think each person brings their own thing, their own special thing to a problem.
Great. So moving on from that, when did you first become interested in your area of work or career choice? Was there a moment where you just knew this was what you always wanted to do?
I got a book from a jumble sale. I think the cover was missing. It was pretty tatty. It was Professor Brainstorm, and I don't think many people have read that sort of thing these days because it's probably well and truly out of print, very old-fashioned. But the whole purpose of this was this Professor Brainstorm. He had umpteen pairs of glasses, and they were all, you know, he's always losing them. But he came up with these fantastic inventions. I mean, he had a house that was just the size of one room, but it opened up and you got extra rooms whenever you had guests. I mean, there were totally crazy ideas, but at that point, that was the point I knew that I wanted to be an inventor. And I suppose I must have been about 5, 6, 7, that sort of age group. And that was, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up, Alison? I'm going to be an inventor. And I knew that. Of course, at that time, I didn't know that inventors generally were people who were scientists and so on. But I mean, there was another stage a little bit later on when I got really interested in languages, and the Rosetta Stone, where the 3 different languages and the problem of interpreting what was said there and all that, that was fascinating to me as well. But so it's puzzles. It
Okay.
really is. It's puzzles that that excite me. So if it's a linguistic puzzle or if it's a mathematical puzzle, it's pretty much the same thing. It's the same bit of the brain. It's but that's, and these days, oh, well, I did maths and physics as my first degree, and then I thought, well, that's still very nice. It's maths tools and physics understanding, but not applied to anything real. And that's when I decided I need to get into engineering, and that was where I moved on from there. So yes, sort of stages where you recognize bits of your personality and what is the sort of things you like doing and how they fit into an actual career. And
Yeah.
that sort of comes a bit later. I think you have to do what you like doing first in
Yeah.
order to recognize how to use it later on.
Lovely, and nice to have such a nice memory from being young, and I hope you've still got the book somewhere on your bookshelf. That would be lovely to still have. And again, I think just to pick up on the importance of recognizing things that you enjoy, and and recognizing those in yourselves, and that piece of like your brain that just switches on, and it can be so different for everybody. You know, I'm not in STEM for because that part of my brain doesn't switch on, but a very different part of my brain does switch on for other things. And kind of recognizing that in yourself and following it
Yeah,
is
there's no
very important.
criticism of any individual person.
Yeah.
Each person is different, and you play to your strengths. There's no
Yeah.
point playing to your weaknesses.
Fantastic. So moving on a little bit, have you ever faced any barriers, or continue to face any barriers or resistance, being in the field that you're in?
It's difficult to say because I've only got my own experience, really. I mean, you can look at other people's and you think, oh, I didn't. I suppose yes, probably. And there's always the one of the expectation. And I mean, at school, I had the headmaster used to arrange careers talks, and he'd arranged a career talk where one option was to, well, there weren't options. Girls went to see the hairdresser, and the boys went to see the garage mechanic, and I really kicked up a fuss about that one. And the headmaster said to me, "But you wouldn't want to become a garage mechanic, would you?" And I said, "No, I'm not particularly interested in becoming a garage mechanic. I'm thinking much further than that." But my best friend, she stripped down a tractor and rebuilt it, and she does all the tractor work on the farm that she, and this was. I lived in a rural area when I was growing up, and I had friends like this, and it was wrong, and it was totally inappropriate for him not to recognize the realities for some of the people in the same class. So that was one of them. And I didn't let him live it down, because after that I was really quite badly behaved in his careers classes. He'd say, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be a brain surgeon." Then he said, "Well, you can't become a brain surgeon until you've started at the bottom." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to become a chiropodist first." That was my sense of humour, and I just played him, and he couldn't do anything because I was perfectly polite. But yeah, but anyway, that was my sense of revenge. And I've been a bit like that ever since, pushing back at people and when they say things they shouldn't say.
Good for you. I think that's a good personality trait to pick people up and push people back. Because I think it's not doing that can
Absolutely.
maintain the stereotypes, isn't it? We need to be confident to say, no, that's not what I'm doing. This is me, and I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm sure you've done some fantastic things in your career. Could you talk us through a couple of interesting projects that you've been involved
Yeah.
with?
Um, well, after a PhD and postdocs and all that sort of stuff, I finally got a job at Rolls Royce. So I left my academia behind and got a real job. And the first 9 months or so were learning the ropes and sort of generally fitting in and finding out how things work. And after that, I pushed a little bit and said, I want to be doing something more in the research end of things. And then there was a call for a European project. So European projects fund big programs of work. So this call was up for up to 10 million euro for something to do with manufacturing engineering and developing new ways of manufacturing. And it had to be done with partners. And when you work for a company like Rolls Royce, you have to be really working with some of your competitors across Europe in order to have a consortium that would fit the rules. So I was catapulted into this with not very much time to go. I think it was a fortnight before the deadline. This came up, and here you are, get on with it. So I spent a couple of days on the phone, phoning up people from all competitor companies from all around Europe. Would you like to be involved in something like this? Have you got some manufacturing technology that you want to develop that fits into something like what I'm thinking of doing, blah, blah, blah. So we had a company from Sweden, Volvo Aero Corporation. We had one from France, Snecma Motors. They've changed now. They've got a different name. And then in Spain, a company called ITP. In Germany, and MTU, and so on. So we've got big companies and also academic partners. So I've got a number of academic partners interested, some from UK, where I look for people who've got the particular skills, and some in some of the different countries. And I also asked the industrialists from the other countries to look for partners, academic partners or research partners that they wanted to work with. And at the end of a couple of days, we got together something like 20 potential partners, and I had to organise a set of meetings. So we had a first meeting where we sort of thrashed out the overall idea for the project, and that was held in Belgium. Belgium being the closest and easiest place for everyone to get to. So we all went to Brussels and we had this meeting, and sort of thrashed out the outline details. It was just really the industrial partners. And then we had a couple of days going back to the office trying to sort out the structure a bit more. And I was in charge. It was me managing this. And I was thinking, they want to do that. They want to do that. They want to do that. How does all that fit into one component so we can actually make one component that looks like a real component, looks like something that could be part of an aerospace engine, and tests out all the different manufacturing techniques that everybody wants to do. So there'll be welding, there'll be machining, there was some stuff with lasers, so laser welding and also measurements. And there was also process modeling. So process modeling means computational computer models of the process of welding. So the heat flow and melting and mixing of all of this stuff. So there's lots and lots of areas of interest. So trying to get all that into some sort of structure. And then I arranged, once I got the structure, I had 6 work packages. And I arranged 6 meetings in different parts of Europe in order to organise those work packages. Those were one after another. So I just went from, I went to Sweden, then I went to Germany, and I went to France, and I went to Spain. And, I did that across a weekend. And at the end of that, we had a final meeting in Birmingham, where the partners that were already sort of joined up and they saw what they were doing and they'd written down what they were going to do and they basically understood what they needed to do, they were in. And the ones that were sort of milling around saying, well, I don't know what to do, I'm sorry, you're not going to be part of the partner. You're not going to be in this project because you haven't integrated yourself. I can't integrate you. You've got to do it yourself. So that was goodbye. One of those was a really senior academic, and he was really quite angry, and he contacted my boss and said, I've been kicked out of this consortium, and that's not appropriate because I've got this fantastic machine. And my boss said, well, I told him, she came to me and said, I told him that your decision is final and I completely back you. I thought that was really nice. And he said, but why did you do this? And I said, well, I had about 20 different people trying to fit themselves together, and he kept coming and bothering me and saying, where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? And I said, and I'm trying to fit together lots of things. And I kept saying to him, you're interested in welding, so go and talk to people on table 3 because they're all interested in welding and work out how you can help them. And he didn't. You wouldn't.
So the answer was you don't fit in.
You don't.
No. Oh,
So well, that was, I mean, and then there was a couple of years of running this project, and you know, it really, I mean, some interesting things happened. Like the French phoned up, and they really were our biggest competitors because they were actually working against us. And they were in the middle of a meeting, and they wanted to introduce a new material type. So we were looking at one alloy of nickel, and they wanted to introduce another nickel alloy, and they wanted to develop the capability. And they were explaining this to me on the telephone, and being quite unsure about how I'd respond to it. And I said, well, that seems to me a really good fit. It takes us another process in the process of manufacturing, which is developing and qualifying a new material. I recognize that you won't want to share some of that data with us, but if you did that in a different work package to us, then we wouldn't need to see it. And they said, oh, you sure? I said, yeah, this is how partnerships work. You get what you need out of it. We get what we need out of it. No problem. And afterwards, you know, maybe a couple of years later, they said how much that they appreciated the way I'd responded to that. So it's a case of listening to people and recognizing their needs, not just pushing your own all the time.
Yeah.
That was a interesting, you know, you don't find these things out until years later sometimes.
No, sounds like a fantastic opportunity, and all the travel and opportunity to learn a lot about yourself, and not just in kind of the STEM area, but in terms of like managing people and
managing people,
projects,
yes,
and that
understanding what their needs were and how to get the best things out of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a bit of a stalemate type meeting, and I thought, oh, this is going nowhere. And I said, well, let's go and have coffee and come back in half an hour. And
all of those skills are very important, aren't they?
Well, everyone was getting their coffee, and I was also walking around, and I started listening, and they're all talking their own language about the problem they had with whatever was wrong with the project. And so I was eavesdropping. I was eavesdropping in German, eavesdropping in Spanish, eavesdropping in French. And I mean, my language skills were not brilliant. German's good, but French a bit ratty, and hardly any Spanish. But I caught enough to recognize what the problems were. And mostly the Spanish were having problems understanding the English. The French wanted to do this project on a different alloy. And I mean, the Germans were reasonably happy, but they just wanted to be told what to do. So, you know, and then when I started the meeting, I could immediately address the problems.
Yeah, fantastic.
And they, you know, how does she know that we were having this particular? I think, well, I'll keep that one to myself for a little bit longer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So language skills is another thing. You know, if you've got a chance to learn a language, then use it. Don't think that it's secondary, because even if it's not really your thing, you know, it's always handy to know.
Comes in useful at times when you might not think it would. Oh, yeah. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that kind of piece of your life with us. So just to kind of draw us to a bit of a close, so do you have an inspirational message or that you'd like to share with others that are thinking about going into the area of STEM?
I think you have to be true to yourself. Do what you really like. So make your choice depending on the things that inspire you at the moment. And the best teachers that you know, if there's a particular teacher you enjoy being taught by, you know, follow that person, because I think you'll learn more from somebody you enjoy learning from. Yeah, I think just go for it.
Fabulous.
I mean, each of the STEM organisations, there's the Institute of Physics, and there's the various different engineering institutions, the mechanical and aero and all the rest of it. They're all really keen on supporting young people getting into a STEM subject. So that's the other thing to do, is to find out more about the STEM subject that interests you, and find out about the institution that will support that, because I'm sure they'll have stuff to give you.
Fantastic. I'm not sure if we lost you a little bit just when you were saying that. I'll see. But you were. I think I picked up most of it, just about making sure that you recognise the institutions that can support you, and there's
so there's the Royal Society of Chemistry, Royal Society of Biology, Institution of Mechanical Engineers, the Royal Aeronautical Society, institution of civil engineers. I mean, I'm just reeling them all off. Oh, Institute of Physics as well. Yeah.
Fabulous.
There's lots of them. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Alison. It's been really insightful to hear from you and your choices and experiences, challenges, successes, barriers, all of those things. So it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've definitely learned something. So yeah, unless you've got anything else to say, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure talking to you, and good luck to everybody who's watching this video. Good luck with your lives.